Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Property Investment Australia podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Lachlan, Vidler, and I'm joined, as always, by my very good friend, Will Sanchez. Will, it is the end of the year. This is going to be our final episode. I think it'll be our final episode for 2025. I'm now running the mental maths on that. Oh, we might have one that actually comes out on New Year's Eve. So it might not be the last episode, but it is one of our last episodes. But mate, how are you? What's been happening?
Yeah, pretty good, my friend. It's been quite busy, as you can imagine. December is a bit of a shorter month. All applications are extremely urgent,
as they always are.
So yeah, it's been quite challenging to be honest with you. But
yeah,
but no complaints. It's good. I think people are getting into the market as they're trying to, find stock where there isn't, which is good.
Yep.
So it's pretty good. How about you, my friend? What do you see?
Oh, mate. Well, I'm good. We've had a huge year. It's same as you. Everything is urgent for everyone today. It's one of those things, and of course, we understand that. Everyone obviously, for the most part, they're only really aware of their own circumstances. But of course, there are other people out there as well that, we're working with and all the rest. So it's always that tricky balancing of client expectations and reality. And when we get to this time of the year, but mate, I'm not going to lie. I am ready for the end of the year. I'm ready. It's been such a big year. Obviously all of our podcasting, all the normal business stuff, life, the TV stuff. So I'm ready for a bit of a break, if I'm being honest with you, but it's been an awesome year and it's been super successful. So it's a break that's needed to rest and recover before an even bigger 2026.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Bring it on, please.
Well, I also found out, we've now finished airing Budget Battlers. So for anyone who hasn't been following along with that, Budget Battlers, Channel 9, it was on 7:30 on Wednesdays. It's just recently finished up airing, and it's on 9 now for those of you who want to go and check it out. Amazing show where with only a 10 grand renovation budget and 5 days to do it, which often ended up being a bit shorter than 5 days by the time we got through filming of things and all the rest. Renovating homes of people who've really struggled, and it hasn't been about delivering them financial returns. It's been about giving them somewhere nicer and more pleasant to live. However, it obviously still does have a financial benefit, and I've very recently got the numbers back that out of the 6-episode season, where I was obviously acting as their investment expert and helping them work out where to spend their money, for 60K of investment, 10 grand per house, we've ended up generating about $1 million of equity for all of those people across Australia. So an absolutely phenomenal result.
Oh, mate. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hats off.
Hats off. No hats inside. I'm sure that your mother told you that when you were a kid. You can't wear hats inside.
Oh, mate, absolutely. The dinner table,
yeah,
smack on the hand.
Exactly. Well, mate, we have a really, really good episode to sort of come in and as I said, I don't know if this will actually be the last one, but to certainly round out the year. We are about to hit Christmas. Everybody will be starting to finish up work in the next few days. People are going to start driving all around the country, flying across the world. I know that this is an amazing time of year where not only do people stop and reset, which is great, but people also tend to use that time of the year when they are taking the travel times, or they're starting to think about what comes around next year, and they start to really take stock of what needs to happen. And that's why today we wanted to bring out, I think, a really good episode, which is all centered around that if you're going to be starting, from scratch in 2026, this is where you need to start. And we're going to give you the exact roadmap of what you need to be doing to start 2026, to set yourself up with property. The episode is definitely designed for people who haven't started. However, there are a lot of things that we're going to talk about for those of you that might already have a portfolio or have started or wherever you're at, that will certainly be good refreshers for you, and will certainly be good that you probably aren't doing some of this stuff, right? Or maybe found yourself getting caught with some of this stuff. So even if you're not starting from scratch, you are most certainly going to take a few things away from this episode. So make sure you keep listening on in. However, before we jump in, have you thought about any big goals for you, my friend? 2026. I'm putting you on the spot here. Have you thought about any big goals that you want to achieve, personal or professional?
No, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, business-wise, I think we want to increase our headcount.
Yeah.
We want to train we want to train more brokers.
Yeah.
Because we want to increase volume, and obviously having shorter numbers prevent you from doing that. So I think that's something we have discussed and we're working on.
Yeah.
Family-wise, I think that's a big part of my goal next year, because I don't take too many holidays, and enjoy family, right? So we're going to start doing that more often, because every time I go somewhere, I travel, I'm working, and that creates what we call friction.
The curse of a business owner.
Yeah, so I'm trying to work or ameliorate myself in that regard.
Wow.
How about you?
I'll tell you in a second, but mate, I love that. I think that's really good. I think, we get a lot of people that obviously send us in emails or calls or whatever. And I think something that we often get feedback on is that people love to hear just a little bit more about us personally as well. That's why I thought I'd put you on the spot with a question, but I think that they're two really awesome goals. I think they're two really, really, really strong goals. I know how much you love your family, big family guy. And I wasn't kidding when I said, right, curse of being a business owner. We're always so busy, always got so much on, everyone's always looking to us for direction and leadership and all the rest. So we can find ourselves getting stuck, and more brokers equals more business, which might make holidays more difficult, but at some point, hopefully it helps the holidays too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hand
in hand, right? But mate, for me, what's the big goals for me? I think on our end, obviously continuing to grow Atlas. There's a lot of services we don't yet offer within the property space, or functions that we don't quite we don't have the capability to do right now, just based on expertise within the team. So I think we definitely want to build out kind of some of that. I think that would be really, really good. And then I think for me, I guess a personal goal, I think a little bit the same. This year's probably been the first year where I have been able to take a small break, and it was only, sort of a couple of weeks, or sort of a week at the start of the year, or not start of the year, but sort of around the end of the first quarter, and then a week for my birthday. But I think I'd like to try and do the same a little bit. I think just trying to find that balance.
Fair enough. We deserve it, eh? We deserve it.
Yeah, we deserve it.
But when you think about it, we never stop. We always mixing businesses and holidays and stuff. So I think it's a fair call, right?
I think as well though, and this is obviously not a business podcast, we've got very important things to talk about very shortly. But I think the other side of it as well though is that when you do have a break, you come back refreshed. I think you're able to be a better version of yourself for staff. You're able to be a better version of yourself for the business and trying to drive things forward. You can be better for clients. I think that there's a real element to it that it's not just about going to take a break for the sake of taking a break. I think actually, when you do it properly, it gives you a huge refresh. And I think that's so important for business owners as well.
You become more productive. That's for sure.
100%. And you know what? Sorry, I said for business owners. I think for everyone, whether you are an employee somewhere, whether you run a business, whether you're, I don't know, something else, whatever that something else is, I think that's also good as well. Because I think it's when you're really tired, you worked hard, it's always easy to think that the grass is greener and things like that. But the reality is it often never is, and you often really like what you do, or you like the people, and we all have tough days, but the break always resets you, I think. But anyway, mate, we digress as we often do. We digress from where we need to go. But if you'll allow me, I would love to kick this episode off for our listeners.
Yeah, bring it on, my dear friend.
All right. So we talked about, or I mentioned the fact that today's episode is about if you're starting from scratch in 2026, we're going to give you the roadmap. All right. And if you're not starting from scratch, there's still going to be a lot of really, really important things that we're going to be saying that I guarantee you're not doing. Right. So to start it off, I think that there are three really, really crucial questions that you need to ask yourself before anything else. Now, if you're starting from scratch, absolutely. But if you're already in it, if you're in the thick of it, it's also really important to keep asking yourself these questions, right? So the first question is, what is your end goal, right? Nobody is sitting here and saying that they just want to own property because they want to own property, right? I've never met anyone like that. Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So property ends up being a means to an end, right? Like how we'd refer to it as, right? So it's so important for you to sit back and think about what your end goal is, right? And your end goal could be a lot of things, right? It could be that you want to generate a certain amount of income, right? It could be that you want to have a certain amount of equity, right? Or net worth, right? I find that goals often end up being one of those two things, right? Because what then tends to come from it is what that allows you to do. You know, I think that they are two important things, right? Because then you move into the conversation of, oh, I'd love to retire early, or, oh, I'd love to work part-time, or like we were just saying, right? I'd love to be able to take, you know, an extra holiday with the family, or, you know, things like that. But ultimately to kind of, that's the emotional answer, right? Like that's what it gives you. That's the freedom it gives you. But to do that, it often comes back to two things, right? Being equity or passive income. Would you agree with that?
155%.
55. I like that.
I just wanted to change it a little bit.
So, you know, I can give you a few examples, right? So we have people that come to us all the time, right? And we'll ask them, what's your goal, right? What do you want to do? And most people will say a number of properties, right? They'll go, oh, I really want to own 5 properties in the next 10 years, you know, or I want to own 2 properties before the end of next year or something like that, right? And the response I give to anyone who says something like that is, why? What is your end goal? Your end goal is not to own 5 properties. Because if I said I could get, you know, you could do with 1 what you want to do with 5, I bet you wouldn't care. I bet you wouldn't say, no, that 1, I don't want the 1, I want the 5, right? So
exactly. At what cost?
Right. So
things like that. Yeah.
Exactly right. So what it really comes down to is in a situation like that is it doesn't matter about the number of properties, right? It's about what is your end goal so that you can then reverse engineer, right? Because as we've done many an episode on, and maybe we'll do another one next year early on, I think it's probably not the worst thing to do, is talking about planning, right? Because you reverse engineer, right? There's a way to build and structure a property portfolio. And based off that, that's how we map out how to get you to your end goal, you know? So it's not about the properties. It's about what the goal is, right? Agree? 155%?
In your personal circumstances as well, because everyone is different.
Of course. And that's the thing, you know, one person might say, my goal is to have $500,000 of income. And then the next person might say, oh, you know, I would just love to have $100,000, you know, or something else in between that, right? So your personal circumstances are definitely going to dictate that. But I think what's also important is you need to be realistic, you know, like if you earn 100,000 and your partner earns 100,000, so you got a $200,000 passive income. It's not impossible, right? But the odds of you having a $500,000 passive income are probably quite low, right? So you got to be realistic as well. All right. But that's the first question, right? The second question is you need to understand the timeline that you are working with, right? So I think that's the saying, you know, anything can be done if you've got enough time and enough money and you're willing to take enough risk, right? And the risk is not part of this, right? Or at least for this part of the conversation. But time, you know, what you can achieve in 10 years is going to be very different to what you can achieve in 20 versus 30. And you can't obviously get time back. So if you're listening and you're sort of on the younger side of the working demographic, don't squander that. You know, like if you're 30 and you think about, well, right now retirement age is 65. If you worked, Wills, I can see you point at yourself there. If you worked, you know, for 30 years to 60, well, if you think about 30 years from now, retirement age is probably not going to be 65 anyway. But think about all you could achieve in 30 years, right? Even 20 years, you can achieve huge amounts and you're only 50, right? But if you're currently 50 and you say, I want to retire by the time I'm 60. So you got 10 years. That's okay. But you need to understand that there's only so much that can be achieved in 10 years, right? Especially based off the third question, which I'll share in a minute. But you've got to be realistic about timings, right? I'm sure you've seen many a person come to you, Will, where they just have such unrealistic expectations about what can be achieved in 2 years or 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think the majority of people, that's probably the very first job we try to align expectation, what we can achieve within what we've got. So I think that's spot on there.
And I think it's a really good point you make. It's definitely something that we align because a lot of the time, especially right now, you know, people all over social media talking about having these huge, you know, portfolios, you know, I got 20 plus properties or whatever. And it makes it seem a lot more accessible than what it really is. You know, like that doesn't have even a 10 property portfolio is quite inaccessible for a lot of people. But it's not the point of this episode. But you don't necessarily need 10 properties, let alone 20, you know? Like you often might only need 4 or 5 really, really smart properties that fit into your plan that are going to help you get there, right? But that's question 2, right? What timeline are you working with? Because you've got to be realistic, and starting today is better than trying to start tomorrow, and doing something is better than doing nothing. So it's certainly not a case of if you're listening and you're 50 or you're 55 saying it's too late. It's not. You just need to be realistic. And I guess one final point on that is, let's say you're 55, right?
Are you pumping me up here, mate? Keep going. You're pumping me up. Let's do it.
This is something we see all the time, right? Somebody who comes, right? They're 50, they're 55, right? Let's say it's 55, or getting on the latter end of the working scale, right? Or ideally the latter end of the working scale, right? And they go, I want to be retired by like 60 or 65. We go, all right, let's say it's 10 years, right? 65. To me, the point isn't necessarily, if it can't be achieved by the time I'm 65, I just shouldn't start. It should actually be, what happens if I don't start at 55? What am I going to be doing when I am 65? Right? Like, to me, that's actually the better question, is not, it's too late, I've just better not begin. It's about what's the alternative, right? And then even throwing another one out there, which is like, okay, I understand that maybe in an ideal world, you're now 65 and you want to be stopped working, right? 10 years. But if you did nothing, you're probably working a lot longer than that anyway. So let's just play devil's advocate. Let's say if you could work another 5 years to 70, right? I understand it's not what you want, but if you could work another 5 years and it categorically sets you up, so differently compared to where you are right now, would that be worth it? 5 more years of sacrifice, but then you are absolutely set up, So I think it's important to think about that. And like I said, if you're on actually the younger end of that, you're in a great spot. Just don't squander it, right? So that's number two. That's number 2. And then we get to question number 3, which is, what are the resources you're starting with? What is the capacity and circumstances you have when you're starting? Because, as I said, if you've got enough time, enough money, and you can deal with the risk, you can do anything. We'll take risk out for this conversation, but then we come to the money, the resources, right? If you've only got a borrowing power that's going to let you buy one property today, and then it's going to improve that you can buy another one in, let's say, 3 years, 4 years. That doesn't mean you don't start, but it's going to impact your end goal. And if you've got a $500,000 ambition, but you can only buy a, 700-800K property today, there's got to be an element of realism. Wouldn't you agree?
157%. That's exactly right.
All right. So that's what we're going to be going with today. I can't wait to see where we end up.
Now, but yeah, you're spot on there, my friend. You're spot on. You got to understand where you are.
I'm sure you see
need
that.
to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, you need to understand where you are. You need to see where you want to go. And then by talking to us, your dear friends, we're going to help you, draw the path to achieving the goals.
Yeah.
Right. But the first thing is, obviously, you need to see where you are. There's no point starting if you don't know where you're sitting.
I'm sure that you see it quite a lot as well when somebody comes to you with, an idea of where they want to be in the future. They share that with you, and then you're also having to help them set a bit more of a realistic expectation based off the, the resources or the constraints that they have. I'm sure that's something that you'd see all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that all the time, especially because I deal a lot with the Brazilian community,
Yeah.
and I can say the majority of times, these people come here. They come to Australia after starting their working life in Brazil, right? Sometimes they've got money in Brazil.
Yeah.
And they think they can access the money fast, but they need to sell, or they're going to rely on a gift. So we need to understand these things to be able to, draw the plan up. Because sometimes it's not liquid, in 2 seconds. You need to plan. Maybe it might take, 3 months to prove like you've got your money sitting in your account.
Yeah.
And it's not money laundering, for example.
Yeah.
I've been a bit extremistic here, but in a way, you got to plan. You got to understand your variables.
But I guess to take it away from that example about, like, as you said, the Brazilian community, that goes to a lot of other situations as well, though. Like, you could receive an inheritance and you might have to wait 3 months before you can utilize it, right? You might receive, you might get injured at work and you receive a payout and you need to wait 3 months, or a period of time to utilize that. So I think it's a great example. I think it's not just about like expats or things like that. I think it really speaks to the whole idea of.
That's a great point.
Right?
It's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great point, because I did get a call last week, someone who received an inheritance, and they said, "Will, what should I do? Should I put this money in an offset account? Should I buy a property? What should I do?"
Yeah.
We don't provide advice, but we do work with fact, figures, and numbers.
Absolutely. So the third of the three questions is you need to understand what the resources are that you're working with, because ultimately, you are going to be constrained by that. And most importantly, it doesn't mean to not start, right? It does not mean that. What it means is you just need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of that, because that then influences things like, what is your end goal? It influences the timeline that you're working with. Because the thing is that, like, let's take a completely different viewpoint here, right? Let's say that you're a young person, right? Like, let's say you're in your mid to late 20s.
Well, let's say I am.
Of course you are, with that skin, with that beautiful Brazilian skin.
Thanks.
So let's say it's that sort of situation, right? And then let's say it's somebody who works as a lawyer, right? And let's say that, which is quite common, high earning professions, but that higher earning potential happens 10 years down the track, 15 years down the track. So right now you might be sitting there as like a 20 or an early 30-year-old lawyer, for example, and you're earning okay money. Let's say you may be earning 120K, 130K, something like that. Not bad money, right? Like, you're obviously not, super wealthy, but it's enough that you can do a lot of things that you want to do, right? But you understand that in 5 years' time, maybe your salary now looks like 250, right? And then you understand that in 10 years or 15 years, your salary might actually now look like $500,000. You also need to factor things like that into it, because you can still get a start today and you can still deal with your financial constraints today or your resource constraints today and have an eye to, in the future, that's going to free up. But I can take active steps today so that when that frees up in the future, I already have, 2 or maybe 3 properties, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. And maybe I've been capped for a few years in terms of being able to continue scaling a portfolio, but I know that's going to unlock. And then when that happens, I got $500,000 of equity sitting there, and I can go and tap that, and I could go buy 2 or 3 properties immediately, So I think it's also important to think about it in that kind of context as well.
Beautiful.
All right. So
love it.
Those are the 3 questions, right? Number 1, what is your end goal? Number 2, what are the timelines that you're working with? And then number 3, what are the resources that you're starting with? What are your financial resources? What are the constraints that you might be dealing with today, right? The situational constraints, right? So that's the 3 questions that you need to ask yourself before you do anything else. Because once you've answered those questions, you now get to move to the next part, which is where we're talking about the 3 stages of a smart investor, especially in 2026, right? Especially with market conditions that we're dealing with, especially with, the financial considerations that come with the lending environment right now, especially when we're talking about, things like the state of, government intervention in property markets and all the rest, like changes in rules and regulations or whatever. So the first stage is the planning stage, right? And that's where you're really going to take the answers from the 3 questions that you just had, right? And that is where you need to build a portfolio plan before you go and do absolutely anything else, right? And I'm going to give you an example. The portfolio plan is going to take your end goal. It's going to reverse engineer with how to structure a portfolio. It's going to be able to do that with the timeline you're working with. And it's going to be able to do that based off the financial constraints you deal with today, right? Now, that's obviously something that we do at Atlas, right? Like we build, like tens and tens and tens of portfolio plans every single month, right? And we're very good at executing on them. So if you don't know how to do that, going to try and build a portfolio plan, you're probably not going to do it right. And you're going to end up buying the wrong properties because you're not going to know the order to buy properties. So you need to do that. And the example I'm going to give is Christmas, everyone's favorite time of year, right? Families get together, friends get together. Even if you're not in that sort of a position, but you're just getting a chance to sort of sit back and maybe you should catch up with friends instead of family, whatever it is, right? I can guarantee that at almost every single family or friends catch up over this Christmas break, property will come up at least once. In some way, shape, or form, it will come up. Whether it's your crazy auntie who's got a story about whatever's going on, whether it's your parents saying to you, you got to get ahead, you just got to get into it, right? Or whether it's with your friends and everyone's talking about how challenging they might be finding to get into the property market, in whatever context, whether it's to buy their own home or to invest, right? I can almost guarantee that in Australia, at any catch-up, property's going to come up at least once.
One way or another.
One way or another,
end up in
right?
property, yeah.
But this is why I'm saying that the planning stage 1 planning is so important, right? If you walk away from, all those Christmas lunches and and you're having everyone in your ear and everyone's talking about, and you go, oh my God, I just need to buy something, right? I can almost guarantee you're going to buy the wrong thing, right? And that doesn't mean it's not going to go up in value. It doesn't mean, it's going to be a bomb of a property. But what I can guarantee you is, or what I can almost guarantee you is, you're probably going to buy the wrong property and you're not going to know it for years to come, right? You might know it straight away if you do buy a lemon, but you might not know it for years until you go to try and scale your portfolio and you realize, wow, I really mismatched my cash flows and now I can't borrow. Or wow, I bought this property in an area that I really struggle to see growth going on. Or wow,
I bought a dud.
I bought a dud, right? Or wow, like this type of asset, it's really not showing the type of scalability that I need for a portfolio that is trying to scale, right? Whatever it might be. But by planning it out first and not just jumping in after you finish your Christmas lunch and everyone's talking about it, you make sure that you don't fail because you bought the wrong thing, right? Or you bought something that's not bad, but it's been bought at the wrong time of your portfolio, right? So that's stage 1, right? Planning, right? Stage 2, which feeds directly off stage 1, is about getting clarity, right? It's about understanding what it is you're about to buy and what that criteria is, right? Because out of your portfolio plan, you are going to now know, okay, these are the kinds of attributes of property of mine needs, right? Cash flow attributes, growth attributes, risk attributes, whatever it is, right? So that's going to help you to get clarity on things like your buying criteria, which in turn is going to help to stop you experiencing something. Got a bit tongue-tied there for a second. Experiencing something that we call experiencing something that we call analysis paralysis, which is the classic situation of you come out, your gun's ready, you're raring to go, and then you look around, you're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. I'm looking at all these properties. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. I'm so worried about doing the wrong thing. And it all comes down to not having a plan, which has then helped you achieve clarity around things like your buying criteria and what that next asset needs to look like. All right. And Will, I'm sure you've heard clients say to you when they're going through the mortgage process, and especially towards the end, I'm sure you've heard them say to you, oh man, do you think I've done the right thing? Like, do you think I bought the right thing? Surely you've had that happen.
Well, absolutely. It happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, was this a good purchase? What
Right.
if I bought, at that place and blah blah blah? I said, start well, start today,
Yep.
and you get cracking. That's
Yep.
all I can say.
Yep. So I think to me, the big thing there is that it's also a case of humans naturally love reassurance, but I think a lot of the reassurance that people try and achieve, from asking questions like that is because they didn't actually establish, clarity around their criteria. They didn't have a strong plan. So they didn't have a lot of confidence that they were actually doing the right thing, right? Would you
Yeah,
agree?
but a lot of people that do go through these let's say issues, it's usually because they didn't have a good plan to start with, or they didn't have professional assistance.
Yeah. And
Right.
and I guess that's what I'm saying is that reassurance is rooted in not having that, like it's not just the classic, like, oh man, like, do you think I've done the right thing? It's more like I feel really nervous. Like, I'm not sure. Like, what do you think? Like, you know what I mean? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a process where a lot of things can go wrong. So why not mitigate them from the start?
Yep. I agree. So that is stage 2, right? That's about clarity, right? And I really, really urge you guys, if you don't have a portfolio plan and you then don't have your clarity, that's what you need to be sitting down to do first, right? And then we come to the third stage, right, of a smart investor, right? And then it's taking action. That's really what it comes down to. You have to take action, right? You've got your plan, you have your criteria, you know what you're doing, right? And if you don't know what you're doing, that's where like Atlas can come in, right? That's where Atlas Property Group can come in and take that away from you or not take it away, support you in that, right? We can support you in the planning side. We can support you in the clarity around the criteria side, but most certainly we can support you in the action side. And that's what you need, right? If you don't have it, you need to get help. But if you are going to do it, you need to actually take the action, right? And I'll say, something we've definitely noticed with some clients now, there's always nervousness, right? Is even if you are getting help, you still need to take action. You still need to put your foot forward, right? Because there's no such thing as perfect timing, right? It does not exist, right? It just does not happen, right? There's always a reason that you could find of why timing does not work, right? You don't need to be finding yourself a unicorn. You just need to be finding yourself a solid, high-performing property, because I can guarantee you that boring is better almost 99% of the time, right? So
I was gonna say it's very easy to find an excuse not to do something.
yeah,
It's the easiest thing, right?
Yeah, it's not about being perfectly ready. It's just about being ready enough. It's the classic old, an 80% plan done on time is better than a perfect plan done late, because you will miss out. That's the reality. You'll be sitting here listening to us doing our end of year episode at Christmas 2026, and you won't have taken action, right? You won't have gotten forward because you didn't take action, right? So that is the final stage, is absolutely you need to take action. Otherwise, like, I can't do that for you, right? You come work with us. I cannot sign your name on a property contract. I can't do it legally. I cannot do it, So at the end of the day, whether you're getting help from us, whether you're getting help from, your brother or your sister, or whether you're doing it yourself, at the end of the day, you still need to take the final action. And that is the hardest part. That's where people get nervous, right? I actually got a funny story for you, right? Had a client, great client, amazing. This a younger girl, younger woman, really love working with her. She's, when you just have those clients that you're like, I'm just so happy that we get to help you, because you really appreciate the work that gets done on your behalf. Like, you really appreciate and value the guidance that you get, right? But this young woman came on, worked with us, and when she came on, we obviously told her the timelines that it was going to take, right? Like, we obviously have other clients that have been waiting a bit longer than her. It's obviously a tough market at the moment as well. So we talked to her about the timings that it might take, right? Obviously nothing crazy, but we want to make sure that she, as with every client, there was just clarity around how it would probably pan out. Sorry. Anyway, we had a perfect property that came up for her, and it came up literally within like 4 days, right? 4 days. Anyway, the reason I'm talking about action is because we ran it through with her. We got through the contract review stage. It was all approved. She's ready to go. She's ready to sign. And she goes, oh, yep, yeah, like I'll sign it tonight, whatever. And she calls me up, like, I reckon an hour or two after I spoke to her. And she had this like almost full breakdown, right? And it all came about because now she had to take action. And she was like, it feels like it's moving so fast. Oh, I just thought I'd have more time to like mentally get prepared before you guys would end up finding stuff. Just all this stuff, right? But what it came down to, we were now at the moment where she needed to take action. And she was now so concerned and nervous about doing it, right? I think I ended up spending almost an hour and a half on the phone with her, going back over the property, going back over everything to do with it, going over it through all of it. And at the end of it, she was like, look, I feel so calm about it now. It makes a lot of sense, right? And I'm willing to do it. But that last moment of needing to take action, she was almost paralyzed, right? And that's because you can set up all the best things in the world, but at the end of the day, you're still the one's going to have to drive it forward, right?
Yeah, pulling the trigger, my friend, is a hard thing.
It is, isn't it? It is.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's it. So that's the 3 stages of a smart property investor in 2026, right? We have the first stage, which is planning, right? You have to be planned. You cannot do it properly because you might get away with it today, but it will bite you next year, the year after that, 5 years down the track. It will bite you, right? So stage 1 is to be planned. Stage 2 is to have the clarity about what your next steps are and what those steps look like and how they're going to be executed, right? And then finally, stage 3 is actually taking the action, right? That's where you really need to do that, okay? And I guess I want to throw something out here, right? That's about the 3 stages of a smart property investor. But I'm going to throw out an alternative stage 1.1. So the 1.1 is if you already own some property, right? You need to get your portfolio reviewed, right? And the reason why I'm saying that's a bit of an alternative start to the 3 stages for those people listening in is because if you haven't had a plan prior, odds are you may have made a mistake, right? Odds are you've got an anchor in the portfolio. So you need to get that reviewed by a professional, because if that's the case, you want to catch it now. And you might be able to have an awesome 2026, right? And then that can mean that if you do have a plan, it can be revised to sort of fix up what's gone wrong. And if you don't have a plan, the review is going to work out where you are now, and then you can start to get on the road of planning and clarity and then action after that, right? So if you do need that, atlaspropertygroup.com.au/portfolio review, we can absolutely do that for you, right? We're not going to do it before Christmas, because we're only a few days away. But if you drop your details in there, we'll be in touch with you in the new year to kick that off. All right. But that's my little side note for those of you listening that do already have a portfolio. Okay. Now,
Good stuff, mate.
we're talking about if you're starting from scratch, right? And we've talked about a lot of things that you need to do, right? But I now want to just really quickly cover, and you see, it's almost been an episode of 3s, right? I want to just quickly cover 3 really common traps that you need to avoid in 2026. Because, Will, I'm sure you're going to agree with me on all these, right? We've seen it all, we've seen it all. We've seen all the common mistakes getting made. And I want to just really quickly call them out because I can see you sitting there. Sorry, not you. I can see, you who are the people listening in, I can see you sitting there in the car, you're driving, right? Or you're sitting around, you're having a beer on the balcony, you're just really enjoying having your time off. You've heard the start of this episode and you're thinking, okay, yeah, that's all good. But then your mind starts to flush through with all these what if scenarios, right? So I want to try and get in front of 3 of them, right? So the first one is waiting for the perfect time, right? Hearing those people that might be at that Christmas lunch or whatever, talking about the fact the market's going to drop, right? Talking about the fact that this is going to happen or that's going to happen, or you just need to do this or you just need to do that, right? There is no such thing as a perfect time. If you think there's a perfect time, you are the exact person that is never going to get ahead. I know it sounds brutal, but you are the person that's never going to succeed with property if you think that there's going to be a perfect time. Okay?
I like that.
It's harsh, right? But it's true. And you know that.
Brutal,
you know that.
Honesty.
Right?
I quite like that.
There's no such thing as a perfect time, right? There's no such thing. But you know what you do need? You just need some momentum. Momentum turns a not perfect time into the perfect time. So if you're sitting there thinking about the perfect time, put that to the side, start to get a bit of momentum, right? Reach out to some professionals, start to do some of the things we talked about in this episode. That is actually going to be the perfect time for you, right? So that's trap 1, wait for the perfect time, right? Trap 2 is jumping in with no plan. I've already talked about it a little bit, so I don't want to harp on too much about it, right? But jumping in without the plan is going to set you back. Even if it doesn't look like it today, I can promise you it will. I can't tell you how many portfolios I have had to, unstuck is another word. It rhymes with unstuck that I'd like to use, right? How many portfolios? You know what I'm talking about. How many portfolios I've had to unstuck because they weren't set up properly, right? And I'm not talking about from the finance side, right? That's obviously not what this is about. I'm talking about from the pure property side, right? Don't jump in, right? Everyone at your Christmas lunch or your New Year's party or whatever's going on, they're all going to be filled with bright ideas, right? There's going to be a lot of good idea fairies getting around, right? And some of them will probably be waiting for the perfect time, right? You got to ignore that, and you need to make sure you got the plan, okay? You need to make sure you got that, all right? And trap number 3 is overcomplicating your first step. Property is so simple. It really is, There's a lot of nuance that goes into it. I don't want anyone to be confused by that, right? But it is, especially at the start, it is really simple, You don't need to buy the property that you can probably that you might be able to subdivide in 5 or 6 years' time. You don't need to buy the property that's got the granny flat potential out the back. You don't need to buy the property that's part of some scheme that you've seen on the internet that's, I don't know, like an NDIS or something. You're going to get all these tenants. You don't need a boarding house. You need a boring, bland investment, all right? I'm yet to see a property portfolio that starts or needs to start with something that is any more than a boring and bland property. And for most people, the boring and bland properties are going to make up the bulk of your portfolio, right? Where they are and other attributes, that might change over time. But the boring and bland that's the secret sauce. Everyone always, I reckon you'd agree with this, Will, right? Everyone always asks, what's the secret sauce to successful property investing? All right. Like, what's the one thing you got to do? What's the, what's the secret to scaling or to doing this, right? And there's no secret sauce. I'm just going to call it out, right? But if there was a secret sauce, I reckon the secret sauce is not overcomplicating it. And the fact that boring is actually the secret sauce.
I would say it's taking action as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yes.
I think everybody just thinks too much. They think that there's all these things they got to account for. They're trying to be the Warren Buffett of property. They're trying to just, I don't know, find some.
But let me tell you, if you've listened to this episode, he will take action. I'm pretty sure.
He's hoping,
it's
right?
It's been a great episode, my friend.
Oh, mate, I agree. So, guys, that is the third trap just before we wrap up, right? That is the third trap. And it is, please do not overcomplicate, especially your first step, but the portfolio as a whole. And I can tell you that if you have a plan, you will not overcomplicate it because it will be done properly, right? So those are the 3 traps that you need to avoid going in 2026. Whether you are starting or there's probably still something to be taken away if you have started. Waiting for the perfect time, jumping in with no plan, and overcomplicating the first step. If you can avoid all of those, you are going to set yourself up for success in 2026 and moving beyond that. All right. So, Will, I reckon we're on track to wrap up now. What do you think? How'd the episode go?
I think, yep. I think let's call it.
Not bad. Not bad.
No, pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Prior to Christmas.
Well, I agree with you, mate, and I think that we've been yapping on long enough that we can wrap up with a few final ideas, right? So, firstly, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We are running into Christmas, as I said right at the start. We might actually have an episode that comes out on New Year's Eve. But I want to say a big heartfelt thanks to all of you who have been listening in for the whole time that we've been doing this show, but also for this year. I'm sure you feel the exact same, Will.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Obrigado. And yeah, chat soon. How you like that?
Was that Portuguese?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does it mean?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it sounds a lot more complicated than there you go. You've overcomplicated it. You've made people now want to go out and learn Portuguese, and they're going to get distracted from property. They're now going to go out on Duolingo and learn Portuguese.
Well, that's a plan.
That's the plan. But no, guys, thank you so much for all of that. All right. Now, moving into 2026, right? Taking action, it's always a big theme on this podcast, but you really need to do it, right? Now, if in terms of taking action, one of the first things that you can be doing is trying to work out your finance, right? So go and hit up Will and the team at Aussie Newtown, all right? Amazing at what they do, right? Details are in the episode and show bio. Go and reach out to them, right? They're platinum for a reason. They're absolutely fantastic. So please go and reach out, right? Now, on the property front, you are very welcome, my friend. Now, on the property front, right? Everyone knows Atlas Property Group is one of the best in the business, right? There's a reason why I'm the investment expert now for Channel 9 on budget battlers, and maybe there'll be a few more things to come. So watch this space, right? But we are very good at what we do. There's a reason why we beat the market every single year. There's a reason why our clients keep coming back time after time. So if you're looking for help, right, come and have a chat with us, atlaspropertygroup.com.au. Get some of that, that expert investment help that I'll be sharing with the country over the course of 2025. And you'll see that there's a place that you can drop an inquiry, right? So go and do that. And then as a side note, if you do want to have a look at the portfolio review, atlaspropertygroup.com.au/portfolio review. So come and have a chat with us, guys, and we'll be loving helping you. But do not wait. Please do not wait, because the market is already hot and it's going to keep heating. So, guys, have a very Merry Christmas. Drop us a positive review, 5 stars. That'll be great. But until we're back with you next time, thank you very, very much.
This is a Piccolo podcast production.